Good day, students. After reading three poems, I'm talking of the first year students, after reading three poems, it is time for us to know what are literary beauties. Literary beauties are also called figures of speech. Figures of speech, I think those who had English literature in 11th or 12th, they might be knowing the term, but those who are new, let me tell you that figures of speech are those elements which make a poem beautiful, the language of the poem beautiful, because we all know that there's a vast difference between the language of the poem and language of prose. So what is that difference? That difference is caused by figures of speech. There are a lot of figures of speech in English literature, and first of all, we will learn what are figures of speech, and then one by one we will do them, keeping in mind the poems we have already done, so that you might be able to understand them well. So, figures of speech are such literary beauties which are used to beautify the language of a poem. Beautify the language of a poem means it decorates the language, it embellishes it. It makes it powerful. It makes it beautiful. So, this is the basic difference between the language of poetry and the language of prose. Figures of speech. Nothing is said directly. Feelings and your thoughts and emotions are conveyed in an indirect manner. For example, taking the help of symbols, taking the help of figures of speech, comparisons, allusions. So, first of all, let me tell you that there are a lot of figures of speech, and we will study some basic figures of speech. So, do you remember the first poem I did with you? The first poem I did with you was Ice and Fire by Edmund Spenser. And in that poem, the very first line contains two figures of speech. My love is like to ice and I to fire. So he compares his beloved with ice and he compares himself to fire. Now, we all know that these are comparisons, but what are these comparisons called, and how is one comparison different with each other, different with the first comparison? So, in the first comparison, my love is like to ice. Though generally we don't use to with like, but poets generally use poetic license. So, my love is like ice. So, this is a comparison between my love means beloved and ice. Now, both these things are different. Beloved is a human being and ice is a thing, is a cold solidified water. Now, what is a simile? Simile is a figure of speech in which we compare two different things with each other on the basis of one or more common points. Note two different things. The things we compare with each other are two things, but they are different with each other. For example, beloved is a human being, she's a lady, beautiful lady, and ice is a solidified cube, cold cube of frozen water. So, is there any comparison between both of them? No, but the poet establishes a comparison between these two things on the basis of one common quality, and that common quality is cold nature. The cold nature of ice and the cold behavior of the beloved. So, why does he compare his beloved with ice? Because the cold behavior, the lack of warmth in his beloved can be compared with ice. And what makes it a simile? The use of the word like. So, simile establishes a comparison between two different things on the basis of one or more common qualities with the help of the words as or like. I will explain you further. For example, generally we compare a beautiful face with moon or with a rose. So we can say Meena's face is like a rose. So if we say Meena's face is like a rose, we need not mention that Meena's face is beautiful. Why? Because rose is known for its beauty. This point is very, very important, that the thing with which we compare anything with the help of a simile or a metaphor should be known for that quality. So for example, moon is known for its beauty and rose is also known for its beauty. So when we say that Lata Mangeshkar is like the nightingale, Lata Mangeshkar's voice is like the nightingale's voice. So because we know that nightingale sings very beautifully, so we need not say that Lata Mangeshkar sings melodiously, because nightingale is known for its melodious voice. So if we say John is like a tiger, so it means that John is being compared to tiger who is known for its strength, who is known for its daring spirit. So when we say John is like a tiger, we need not mention that John is a very, very daring person, he's a brave person, he is a strong person, because tiger is known for these qualities. And if we use as and like while comparing, then it is an example of simile. So John is like a tiger. Two different things. John is a human being and tiger is an animal. Both things are different to each other, but the point on which we compare John with tiger is strength. Remember, I told you we compare two different things on the basis of one or more common qualities. So here there are more than one common qualities between John and tiger. What are those common qualities? Those common qualities are strength. Those common qualities are bravery, daring spirit. So I hope you must have understood what is a simile. Simile is a figure of speech. And what are figures of speech? Figures of speech are literary beauties with which we decorate the language of a poem, with which we beautify the language of a poem in order to make the poem more expressive, more attractive, more beautiful. So simile is a comparison between two different things. They are not same, different things on the basis of one or more common qualities or common characteristics. Now let us do another figure of speech. Another figure of speech is very much related to simile only. It is metaphor. Metaphor is the most commonly used figures of speech in the language of poetry. And metaphor is also a comparison between two different things on the basis of one or more common qualities. These are common things between simile and metaphor. And what makes a metaphor different from simile? Metaphor does not use as or like. Simile uses the words as or like for comparison, but metaphor does not use as or like, it directly compares. So we will take the same examples or related example. Again, ice and fire. He says, my love is like to ice and I to fire. Now I to fire. Here he hasn't used like or as. So it is a direct comparison. So he says, I compare myself to fire. I to fire. So again, Lata Mangeshkar is the nightingale of India. In a simile we said Lata Mangeshkar is like the nightingale. Here we say Lata Mangeshkar is nightingale. In simile we said John is like a tiger. But in metaphor, we will say John is a tiger. Camel is the ship of desert. Now, what is the comparison between camel and ship? Camel is an animal and ship is a thing, but it is being compared on the basis of the quality of its conveyance from one place to another place easily, where no other mode of conveyance would go. For example, only a camel can cross the desert. In the same way, only a ship can cross the sea. The quality of conveyance from one place to another place in hardships. So if we say camel is like the ship of desert, then it would be an example of simile, or camel is as the ship of desert, again an example of simile. But if we directly say that camel is the ship of desert, then it would be an example of metaphor. If you remember in the poem Go and Catch a Falling Star, there's a very beautiful metaphor, pilgrimage. Do you remember that? He says such a pilgrimage was sweet. Now, what is pilgrimage? Pilgrimage here is a comparison. He compares the journey from his home to the beautiful and loyal lady to a pilgrimage. Now, these are two different journeys. Journey to a beautiful lady and journey to a religious place. They are two different things, but they are being compared beautifully on the basis of the feeling of devotion. He says that I would go to that beautiful and loyal lady with the same devotion, with the same feeling of worship in my mind as the pilgrims set off for a pilgrimage with a lot of devotion in their heart. So that is an example of metaphor from our poems. Another example, the poem we read yesterday, Death Be Not Proud. Death is being compared to a slave. Thou art a slave to fate, king, chance and war. Again, it is an example of metaphor because he compares death to a slave. He also compares death to rest and sleep. He also compared death in the second last line to a short sleep. He says, one short sleep past, we wake eternally. So death is being compared to short sleep. It is being compared to a sleep and rest. It is also being compared to slave. So these are examples of metaphors from our course of study. Now let us revise the two figures of speech which we did today. What are figures of speech? First of all, figures of speech are generally used in the language of poetry in order to make the language of poetry more attractive. It lends a charm and beauty to a poem. It also makes a poem concise. You must have heard the expression in Hindi, Gagar mein sagar. The language of poem is small. In very few words, he explains a lot. Now, how is it possible? It is possible by the help of the figures of speech. So, figures of speech are those devices which the poet uses for beautifying a poem, for making a poem more intense in its expression and making it more attractive and beautiful. So the first figure of speech which we did was a simile. Simile is a comparison between two different things on the basis of one or more common qualities with the help of the words as or like. She is as beautiful as a flower. Lata Mangeshkar sings as melodiously, as sweetly as a cuckoo bird or as a nightingale. Camel is like the ship of the desert. John is as strong as a tiger. So these are the examples of simile because we have used the words, comparing words like and as. The second figure of speech we did today was metaphor. Metaphor is also similar to simile in some points, that It is also a comparison between two different things with the help of two different things on the basis of one or more common qualities, but it does not take the help of the words like and as. The examples which we did in simile can be converted into metaphor. Lata Mangeshkar is the nightingale of India. Camel is the ship of desert, and John is a tiger. So here we haven't used like or as. So I hope you have understood what are figures of speech. More to come. Thank you.